Welcome to Global Topic Live. I'm Jim Kunkel.
And I'm Hiedi Brooks.
Heidi, we have a very interesting live stream today. We're going to be talking about garnet as a mineral and also talking about it as a blast media, also talking about the advantages and return on investment. So why don't we go ahead and we'll bring in our guest here from Team GMA. Hey guys, how you doing? Let me fix the screen around here for us. There we go.
Hey, doing well. How are y'all?
Real good, real good. With us today, we have on the right here, we have Pete Mitchell, Dianna To, and Kevin Zimont. Guys, welcome.
Hi.
Hey,
Thanks for having us.
Good to be here.
I see in the background you have about GMA. If you could go ahead, Pete, go ahead and describe and cover what GMA does in the industry.
Absolutely. GMA is a global mining, processing, packaging, marketing. We do full cradle to grave with the garnet. We have 3 deposits that are our deposits that we mine. We have 11 processing plants around the world. 4 of those are in the U.S. And we are part of GMA Americas, which we handle all of North, South, and Central America. So we're not a general abrasive distributor. We're not a just equipment company. We are strictly a garnet, full garnet from front to back company.
So when we talk about the word garnet, garnet is a mineral. Can you cover, how the mineral is, first off, where it's found typically globally, and then how is it extracted?
It's garnet. It comes in areas, it's found in areas where you've had glaciers before. It's formed similar to diamonds where pressure and heat over the years. And you tend to find it in regions where there has been glacier activity before. North America, you find it all the way across from like Idaho, all the way across through New York. Africa, you'll find it some in India, Australia. Every now and then there's like 13 different types of garnet. So the good garnet you find in that now there's also really, really low end types of garnet that aren't even used in blasting or anything like that are everywhere. I mean, I think 50% of the state of Nevada is an andradite garnet that is just like brown sand.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously over the last number of years, I've seen and more specifications when it comes to projects, and I've seen a higher use of garnet as a blast media. When it comes to the efficiencies and effectiveness of garnet, could you go into some detail about that?
Yeah, sure, Jim. I'll cover that.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about garnet and its inherent properties, what makes it a performance abrasive? You really think about the hardness of the mineral, you think about the bulk density, and you think about the friability. Those 3 things together really allow it to be a performance abrasive. Where you see some other minerals, some other slags, and some other minerals just don't have those properties that inherently give it that type of performance and that generation, that energy transfer to the surface. So when I think about ROI, I think about it 2 different ways. I think from an asset owner standpoint, you think about the cost that they have holding on to an offline asset, and that can be in the tens of thousands to millions of dollars, depending on the scope of the project and where that asset lies. So if you think about it from that standpoint, it's huge. Performance product going to get you your asset back online a whole lot quicker. And then you think from a contractor standpoint. So these guys, you actually using the abrasive on site. And for me, it's kind of split again in 2 ways. You think about applications in which are just tailored for garnet. Okay. You think about new construction. You think about light mill coating projects, a lot of substrate, a lot of flat surface. Garnet's going to shine. Because one thing you have to know about garnet is you're gonna be very fast in terms of production, blast speed, but you're also going to consume a lot less than you would with an alternative mineral or a slag product. So you're going to enhance those 2, which at the end of the day will give you a cheaper cost per square foot, and that's where the savings comes in. And then on the other side of the coin, you start thinking about those more challenging applications where you have thicker mill coatings, you've got more structure, more angles in complex structures. What GMA has done is actually tailored abrasive to specific applications, where the bread and butter applications, you've got an 80 and you've got a 30/60. That has been the standard in the industry. We've now tailored products to specific applications, combining different types and grades of garnet based on coating type, coating thickness, and so forth.
So durability. What about recyclability?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, again, all garnets aren't the same, okay? So some coming from different regions are going to yield different recyclability because they have different friability properties, right? So some upon impact are going to maintain their shape, their size. Others are going to blow apart into various particles, create more dust, and have less turns on a recycle process. But standard, if you're 100 psi at the surface, I'd say anywhere from 3 to 4 recycles is what you're going to get from a garnet product.
And Jim, that's something too. I mean, with all different abrasives, you've got naturally garnet changes from deposit to deposit around the world. Some, like he's saying, you'll look at it under the microscope and it looks like a million little snowballs packed. Another one you'll look at, it's a nice hard solid crystal. But even in the other abrasives out there, and even some of those that, depending on how they're quenched or how it was actually the final process or the temperature, you'll have something named the exact same bit, and it'll be night and day. One of them you'll blast with it and it disintegrates into a powder. The next one hits it and knocks a hole in the wall. So
okay, yeah. When it comes to, obviously there's so many options when it comes to blast media out there. What recommendations do you have for an owner or an engineer who's looking at trying to qualify a blast media?
I'll take it. So I think really when we're talking to owners, we're asking them to really pay attention to their specs a little bit more instead of using the vague, like regular standard, as in give me an SP10, but kind of hone in a little bit more on the profile that they're looking for, the surface cleanliness, their peak density, etc., so that they can make sure that they're, protecting their asset longevity a little bit longer with the coatings, and paying attention to the surface preparation more. So, I think that's really the important part.
And
it's interesting when a spec can be 10% the surface prep, 90% the coating, and then they tell you that 80% of the work is surface prep.
That's a really good point, and I think that's something that everybody should take notice of and make sure you pay very much attention related to surface preparation. Eric had posted a question. Is garnet as hard as aluminum oxide?
Garnet, it can be. Aluminum oxide you get up around the 8 to 9. It's all on the Mohs scale. Mohs scales 1 to 10, diamond being the hardest. You see some garnets as soft as a 6.5. You see some as, like, we have some of our Montana material comes out of the ground 8.5. I mean, you're getting up close to quartz and corundum and some of those really aluminum oxide. So some of them, absolutely, yes.
The other questions that really come to mind for me when it comes to, we talk about the advantages. What are some of the, obviously there's pros. What are some of the cons related to garnet?
I'll take that one. Yeah, I think, Jim, that's a good question. Again, you talk about the variety of different garnets that are out in the market. From a sourcing piece, that's when you control those 3 properties we spoke of earlier, right? Hardness, bulk density, and friability. The second piece to that is the processing, right? And what a lot of companies don't have control of here in the U.S. is actually the processing piece of it. So what you're at the mercy of is whatever you get in the bag from India or China is what you're going to have here in 10,000 tons or so. So you're kind of at the mercy of someone that's not really that easy to get a hold of. And what that can lend itself to is a very low purity product. So when you have a low purity product, especially with garnet, you can have potential for high silica. You can have the potential for embedment. So you have all these other softer, non-productive minerals that are in garnet sources that you have to separate. So if you don't do a proper separation, you can really have those sorts of visible and non-visible contaminants as well as high chlorides. I mean, some of these mines are straight off the beach, and if you don't do a proper washing, while garnet doesn't seem to transfer to this, or chlorides don't seem to transfer to the surface at a great degree, once you start hitting that 25, 30 ppm mark, then you start to see that transfer. But what allows that transfer is also that friability piece. So in combination with those two things, you can have a bad recipe.
And one of our things too, Jim, just to add to that, one of Garnet in general's biggest strengths is also its weakness when you're trying to, not when you're trying to use it, but in our sales pitch on it, is that garnet is very heavy. Garnets tend to be anywhere from 140 to 150 pounds per cubic foot. I mean, you see a garnet bag and it's a little bitty bag versus sand, which is about 70. So when it hits the wall, that bulk density and that heavy weight is really what does the work transfer, like Kevin said. That's why you can use so much less and still get the amount of work done and still get good profiles. That being said, you see what happens when you're pouring through a funnel or you're moving something. You have something that's twice as heavy. Well, when you go to try to pour it through the same type hole or something like that, it goes twice as fast, sometimes 3 times as fast. So one of our biggest problems that we have is overfeeding. I mean, we're the ones selling garnet, trying to tell people, please don't use so much. You know what I mean? That is actually one of the biggest weaknesses, is that you really, really need to meter it properly, not only to get the right performance, but not to make it to where it's not so costly.
Yeah, that's a key to ROI, Pete. It's a good point.
So Laura had asked a question regarding any certain type better for equipment to reduce wear and tear expenses. I think kind of going with the metering and everything like that.
Yeah, I don't know for wear and tear. I think it really goes back to Pete's point, is that if you're metering the product properly, you won't flood the nozzle, you won't flood the hose, and hence have more abrasive impacting those wearable items. So for us, the critical piece is a proper metering valve. If you're metering it proper, if you have the proper metering valve, you then need to take the best practice in terms of actually metering it properly, because you can have a proper metering valve, obviously, and still open it wide open and not have the same effect. So for me, I mean, I think that's the short answer to that question, is just proper metering.
That guy that used, and I mean, either a sand or a slag, and I'm using those just because there's such a great weight difference. It's a perfectly good example that if he may have been blasting for 30 years and he knows that metering valve in and out, he knows that he turns exactly this many turns. Well, if he just dumps garnet in the pot, he's going to be using 3 to 4 times too much. And it's just, he may have the best equipment in the world, but he's so used to metering that other product, we have to go back and adjust.
So most people that sell abrasives or are giving you not just garnet, but any abrasives, aren't going to really tell you, hey, you should use less of our product. But that is the ROI of using our product, is, we're going to tell you you need to use less. And that's why we offer the technical on-site support as well, so that they understand that we want them to get the best ROI of using GMA's garnet as well.
And earlier you had covered about, obviously, when you're talking about the material coming from globally from different parts of the world, you really can't guarantee unless you know the source of it when it comes to contaminations and other things that might be associated with the media, with the material. And looking at stuff like, obviously we're dealing here in the United States with OSHA regulations on silica exposure, beryllium exposure, and things like that. When it comes to testing, could you go into a little bit of detail regarding the material and when it comes to silicas and beryllium and things like that?
As far as testing in the plants or testing when processing?
Yeah, the testings that's done and anything that you could speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. There's several different things when you're processing the garnet. There's all different types of minerals mixed in. I mean, when you dig it out of the ground, there may be 40 different types of minerals mixed in. The key is to be able to separate it down to exactly what you have, what you want. We just want the garnet in the bag, as high as concentration as possible. And at every one of our plants, we have thorough washing we have magnetic separation, we have screen separation, we have all different types of. I mean, our simple processing plant. It's a $30 million plant, so it's they're just not knocking the dust off of the material. But we really get it down to the purest garnet. Sometimes where you have to watch for is you do get some all natural minerals. You may have just a solid crystal of the one mineral. You may have a conglomerate. So you may have a bag that they all look like garnet in it, and then when you zoom in it and realize it, you'll look in and you'll notice that it has little silica crystals all over it. That's what bites you on really the silica issue, is when you get some of them that haven't broken it down to do that. Now, we do very, very intensive testing. We have both in-house and third party, but we at every one of our plants in the U.S., we have full chlorides, conductivities, we have bulk density, we have sizing, but then we also have XRD. And so like the big expensive XRD testing that you'll send out for, we actually have one of those machines at every one of our labs, and every 2 hours we pull a sample, and I can tell you down to the 2 decimal place what percentage I have in that bag.
Nice.
Yeah. Heidi, I kind of dominated all the questions. Did you have any questions for our guest?
Actually, I did have one. Dianna, you mentioned on-site support. Do you guys do any proactive training in your services?
Yeah, so we actually, not only do we offer support for our contractors who actually utilize our products, then we also offer a webinar, lunch and learn, and training where we educate our owners as well, more on not just our garnet, but all abrasives and the beryllium, the safety, the OSHA requirements as well, and then the heavy metals, so that they understand that we're doing these testings third party and in-house, and so that they know, hey, if we're going to be putting these abrasives in our specifications, or we're approving these abrasives, we should probably know more about it. And so when you're looking at owners who are actually writing the specs, there's not going to be somebody who is a pro on surface prep or a pro on abrasives. So it's kind of our job to educate them a little bit more. So that's kind of what we took this role on with GMA is, hey, let's make sure that if we're going to cover them to be able to use the product, let's make sure we're educating them on the other side as well as learning more about why they should be using our products.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very good point. What a great conversation we've had here. Is there, closing out this live stream, is there anything that we did not cover that you would want to leave with the viewers?
The other thing that I would throw in there as far as testing wise, I mean, we like I said, we do extensive testing on it. Right now, the two that you've mentioned, especially there's the beryllium, there's the silica, but there's you see the list of, there's 17 heavy metals. You've got your arsenics, you've got your chromiums, your cadmiums, you've got all different types of things. You really, plants are, the environmental control, and the plants are not going to relax any of these. It's only going to get tighter and tighter and tighter, and we all have to tighten up our belts on our products. One thing that you really need to watch for is don't just go off a test that says, oh, we don't have something, or don't say, oh, we're below a test level. Because if let's say the legal limit for something is 1, and I run a test and the recordable limit on the test is a 4, and I tell you that I'm below a recordable limit, well, that's great. My level may be 3.9. That's still out of spec. So and that's with all abrasives in general. I mean, from garnets to slags to sands to anything. Just make sure that if you're an owner or if you're somebody using something, know what it is, know what it's reported in, understand the rules, and just read into it a little bit more.
What are some of the questions owners and specifiers should be asking these testers, quote unquote?
I mean, there's specifications and there's PELs that say how much you can have. And one thing that one of the main things that we keep hearing on from the beryllium side, everyone wants to know your beryllium level. I'm like that. I mean, there's a level. All of our level, most of our levels with abrasives are so far below just the basic, the percentage. That's one thing. The PEL states by dust in the air, by total dust in the air. So everyone comes back and they don't like the fact that I say, well, you know that it is your job site related, right? I don't know how windy it is that day. I don't know how close quarters it is. I can't give you a number that you can go make somebody happy with. And so that's one of the main things to know, is that even with all of these, you really need to, it's all about the testing on site.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely. And then a question did come in from Eric. He's looking, obviously, just a general question. Do you have distribution in Canada for GMA products?
Yep.
Probably
Yes,
go to your website probably to take a look at that.
Yes, or give us a call, and we can hook you up with them. We have multiple distributors all the way across Canada.
Very good, very good. I so appreciate this opportunity to have a conversation with everyone, with all of you today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for inviting
absolutely.
us.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate the time. Too.
Have a great day, everybody.
You the same, guys.
Bye.
All right. Thank you.